Hello, fellow Econauts, and welcome back to our show. I'm here with my brother Ben, the Rocket Man, and we talk about science, space, and economy. Hey, Ben, how are you?
Hey, Simon, how's it going? Hey, fellow Econauts. Simon, what's the topic today?
Our topic today is space agriculture, and I would like to know what is space agriculture.
I think the name gives it away pretty easily. Anything you would grow in space is space agriculture. So, be it on your trip to wherever you want to go, or if you want to settle on another celestial body other than Earth, would be considered as space agriculture. And I also would include any research going on to achieve these goals. So even if you grow plants on Earth, but their purpose is to go to space, I would also already start to call that space agriculture as well.
Then the next question is pretty obvious. So why is that important for space colonization?
Well,
I think it's
first
very
of all,
it's
it,
actually a stupid
I think it's
question. Why
very
is this important? Because we need food.
we need to eat.
We need to
Um,
eat.
I think it just to put the relevance a bit further to that. I mean, that is obvious, but also nutrition is not that straightforward. So it's not just, everybody thinks it's just calories in, calories out. In order for the human body to work properly, we need a certain amount of enzymes and vitamins and proteins and so on. And space agriculture is very, very strongly attached to um, nutritions and diets of the human body. In fact, I one thing I've learned in a quite recent visit of the University of Western Australia International Space Center was that you cannot feed the human body from plants alone. There are certain enzymes which plants cannot build, and in order to survive in space, we need everything, right?
Yeah.
We need, especially if you consider even to have a whole colony on Mars. Maybe for one generation or for an extended time, you can get away with not getting all nutritions for the body. And then you have a bit of a lack of one or two things, which you want to avoid in space as well, because you want to be on the top of your game in order to function. But in order to colonize, you need everything. So now the problem though is now imagine you send Starship, SpaceX Starship, and you put not only humans in and food and rations and whatnot, but also animals
Yeah,
for meat,
just wanted to say, yeah.
right? It's, it's quite complicated. So you want to avoid bringing animals, but you can't pre-pack, or if you do pre-pack food, then that is limited, right?
Right.
Space agriculture, if done right, offers also the pathway for a sustainable stay in space, so that you do not have to send stuff back, and that you can reuse stuff in your ship. So obviously, as long as you're on your spacecraft, the mass inside the spacecraft is constant, other than the thrusting, the propulsion thrusted out for acceleration. But everything inside the spacecraft is constant, which means when we eat and digest and we
Yeah.
poo it out, that has to be used in the best case scenario for something else. Same goes for exhaling. You want to reuse your air as well in everything. You don't want to just throw it out because it's mass, and you want to reuse the mass as a fertilizer, for example.
Yeah.
So, but as I mentioned, plants alone cannot fulfill all the needs for our nutrition. Now, a lot of people will yell out now, but this is not a topic to discuss really for the matter of belief. It is scientific fact. There are some bacteria, though, which could provide the missing components. However, those bacteria as well, they need to thrive and so on. Another thing why space agriculture is so important, if you just think of a plant, there's not a lot of plants out there where we can use everything. So one plant, an apple tree, for example, we cannot use really the stem and the branch and the leaves. We can't eat them. we might make some tools out of the wood, so maybe we can reuse the wood, but otherwise only the apple or the fruit is usable. So you want to actually choose, or you want to investigate and research plants or make other plants, regrow them, or repurpose parts of the plants in a way that you can use everything. So that everything might be edible, the leaves, the stem, the roots, everything, so that you can actually use the whole plant, or that you have other purposes. And also and that is quite interesting, there's research for plants where you can actually trigger with certain stimuli what kind of thing you want the plant to do, or what kind of thing you want the plant to grow. So by applying a certain stimulus, certain light, for example, you can make the plant grow leaves, and the leaves might be medicinal, so you can make some medicine out of them. But at another time, you want another type of light, and then it grows fruit, so you get actually certain fruits of it, and that is actually actively being researched. So you want to have a plant which can make it all, more or less, in the best case scenario.
I think an interesting question to inject here is, if we look at the typical thing that we grow, it's like wheat, right, to make bread. We can use the corn, obviously, or the wheat itself to make flour, and then baking bread out of it. But the rest of it can be made into hay, which can be fed to cows. But sending a cow to the moon might be a little bit hard to do.
Moon cow.
That might be, well, kind of interesting to have a cow on the moon, but that's
The moon cow.
moon cow. But I think the first animals to actually send into space, the logical pick would, in my opinion, be chicken. They are small, that you can have like lots of them. Eggs would be available to you, which is like very nutritious, and can also fulfill like a lot of different. There are a lot of different check marks that you can have with a chicken. But the problem is that they would not necessarily be happy with hay. They actually would need the corn that we also need, or the wheat. Sorry, it's in my German mind.
Yeah.
But they would actually eat the food that we also want to use for other purposes. So it's very interesting to see that because of the limitation that we have available or not available, let's put it this way, because we do not have certain things available on the moon or even Mars, we actually have to be very creative when it comes to
it's not trivial. It's not trivial. I mean, it sounds very straightforward, but in the moment, even for a longer trip, in the best case scenario, you can regrow. As I said, you just have so much waste from breathing and from even oxygen. Having plants with you means oxygen as well. They make photosynthesis. They make oxygen. And then another aspect, you mentioned wheat. Wheat is not growing very quickly, for what you really need. Imagine you are 3 months in space and you have eaten up all food.
Wait.
You have to wait another year.
Wait. It's not growing very quickly on Earth. Is there maybe a different cycle on different planets?
Well, first of all, this would be part of the research, but in general, I would say the germ is working as it is, so it needs certain environmental conditions. Environmentally, even the lack of gravity can make a huge problem. So we don't know, and I'm certain on the ISS there will have been hundreds of experiments about that already. But yeah, in general, I think even the lack of gravity will make a huge problem, because in which direction is the root growing, in which direction will the stem grow, and so on. But as I said, like you want something which is growing very fast, and there's some plants, water plants, for example, a bit more, they're a bit more promising because they double their mass per day or something. So that is duckweed, for example.
Yeah.
Duckweed is doubling its mass every day, I think. You need something like that, which is growing very fast. But then duckweed is, I don't think it's very, very nutritious. So
Yeah.
you might want to change the genome a little bit so that you get it there. Long story short, we have not solved that problem yet. It sounds very trivial, but if you really go to space, as I said, we need a lot of nutritions to really function properly, especially in an environment where the environment is already quite dangerous to us and not very inviting. We need to function at 100%. We can't afford to have a lack of a certain of anything, and because of that, not working fully.
Right.
And
My final question is the relevance of space agriculture for us here on Earth.
Yeah. I think space agriculture is a very good example why I always preach that anything you solve in space solves a problem on Earth. Imagine we find, or we grow, we make, we mutate, or whatever, a certain plant that it can now feed a person by providing the minimum of input, such as a minimum of light from any source, a minimum of nutrition and fertilizer, like the optimal point, and it grows every day and doubles its mass, and maybe even is tasty. So if we find something like that, we could use that on Earth straight away, and we can feed a lot of people with that. So I think, obviously that's a good thing. And the other thing, what I mentioned before, if you can trigger plants to do certain things at certain times, you can have, instead of growing hundreds and hundreds of different plants in different spaces and places, you could have one plant, and if you need, today I need a certain medicine, you let the plant grow it for that time, and then all the nutritions that plant needs will be put into making this medicine. But the next time you need something else, like the fruit, or you want to make tea, or what, certain things the plant can do, and you can trigger now other aspects of that plant. And therefore, or you can even perfectionize the point when the plant is spreading and multiplying. So you wait for the perfect weather conditions and you look at your weather radar. Oh, tomorrow will be really bad weather. So you don't want the plant now to split because it takes a lot of energy for the plant to do it. But the day after. So you trigger a certain impulse or stimulus to the plant so that it does that split or that thing, what it is supposed to do, at a time when it's perfect for it. So you can actually have less crops dying from bad weather and so on.
Wasn't it that some colonists brought something to Australia? That's the reason why Australia has a lot of really strict rules importing stuff, because we basically have the situation on Earth where we have an environment, which is Australia, that was like heavily influenced by the colonization.
It happened a few times.
Yeah.
Not only once.
Right.
And just to mention, New Zealand has even harsher import rules. And so just for anybody who doesn't know, when the settlers came to Australia, they wanted to hunt, so they brought foxes and rabbits. They needed their things. Even bringing cattle here, wasn't really good for the environment, because cattle needs a certain type of environment, and we humans, we tend to change the environment in order to suit us instead of adapting us to suit to the environment. And therefore we have changed a lot of the environment in order to have cattle. A funny side note, Australia, in order to build the rails, we brought, or not we, but camels have been brought over in order to transport things. And once the rail has been finished, the story goes like this. the workers have been tasked to kill the camels, but because they have been such good companions, they let them go. And to this day, we have now the biggest health and healthiest free living camel herd or camel population on Earth. And obviously, the camel is not coming from here. The camel is the exemption, though. Although it's not it's still an alien in the Australian environment, so to say. It is not very harmful because the camel is actually quite good for the environment. It has very soft, I don't know, hoofs. I don't know if you call it a hoof
Yeah.
for a camel, and it doesn't destroy the environment. And they only eat a certain type and a certain height of the growth, so they are actually not very damaging to the environment. But yeah, we have the biggest and healthiest population, free living camel population in the world. So I think that's very funny.
It is, but it also shows, how much thought has to be put
Yeah.
into also space agriculture to make sure that we have like everything in place, that we know what we are putting ourselves into. And I think this is a very good point to end the show.
Yes.
I Otherwise we are going way off topic. There are a lot of interesting facts for follow-up shows. I hope you liked that show. If you did, please leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And we'd like to hear from you. What do you think about space agriculture? Just leave a comment, and we will see you in the comment section. All right. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye.